Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rotation on the Røkkr YouTube and anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. We're there, live and direct. My name is Ashley, aka MiDNiTE, the host, alongside Kingdom Soldier, good old just Kingdom classic COD legend. He's been absolutely slaying the game from day one. And returning, coming up out of the casket like the Undertaker, man. Ikon is back. He's back, and I'm so excited. Ikon, welcome back to the podcast. We missed chopping it up with
Let's
you.
Go.
Let's go. You got the Røkkr like USA jersey on. You're like kitted, ready to
go. My favorite jersey.
I got my favorite Røkkr hoodie on. I got a Timberwolves hat. If you know, you know. This is our year. Hey, Kingdom rocking the version 1 hoodie. Oh my goodness. We're back, baby. And today is episode 50 of the Rotation Podcast. Guys,
wow.
It does not feel like how have we done 50? But also, how haven't we done 100? Like, think about that. That's like at least an hour an episode, sometimes like 90 minutes. Times that by 50, bro. We've sat and talked COD for hours upon hours. And shout out to everyone who's in the chat, listening,
shout out to the
and
chat,
vibing out with us. Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna do some things. We're gonna be doing a CDL roster tier list. Now that I think every roster is confirmed, with the exception of London Royal Ravens, right? But it's like pretty much everyone knows who that roster is. So we'll be talking about that later. And we're just gonna be kind of. It's a little sad, but this is the last episode of the rotation for this season. We'll be back next season, but for this season, this is the wrap.
It scared me,
dude. I know I did cause some anxiety in the chat. Get everybody a little bit like what? But no, yeah. I mean, we're talking roster mania. The game comes out in what, 10 days? Holy cow!
Right? Oh my gosh, really?
Holy cow!
I need to take some days off of work. I'm getting sick.
Yes, gotta get a doctor's note real quick. But yeah, I'm stoked, man. Talk about the end of the season here as we ramp into the next Call of Duty game. And like I said, we will be back next season with the podcast. It's gonna be freaking sick. But let's start with what we always do, and that is the state of Minnesota Røkkr. What the heck's going on? We had off season. We only kept one of our players that we've had. Attach has been on the team. This will be his third season. Good old Captain Price. Word to Aches, of course. But no, what are you guys thinking about the state of Røkkr? Right, this is the roster. We've got Afro, obviously Attached, like I mentioned, Vance and Cammy. I'm gonna let you go first. You're coming back in the mix. You're revved up. Let's hear your thoughts on the new Røkkr roster.
Yeah, I guess my first response to this would be, if you're gonna be building your squad around somebody moving forward, it has to be Attached, right? Like that's the kind of like the cornerstone of the franchise that you have to build around. Last year, I mean, he's been a player for 7, 8, 9. I mean, he's been around the CDL for a long time, but you could argue that last year was one of his best years in a season where, Priesta was kind of up and down and Standy was up and down and there was some inconsistency. That's something that you just couldn't say for Attach. It just major in, major out. He was just consistent. He led the squad. So I think when you start with, where do you want to be moving forward? I think that's the person you have to build around. So obviously Attach coming back is a major plus for us moving forward. And then from there, if you start to look at some of the new pieces that have brought in, I think the biggest one that stands out for me would be Cammy. I think the last 2 years when it comes to not only this rivalry between Røkkr and Ultra, but just the way Ultra performed when they were in majors and they made it to finals. It seems like, well, you always knew what you were going to get from Kleenex and Cammy. What was the rest of the squad going to bring to the table for the Toronto Ultra? So with Cammy signing aboard, I think that makes one of the deadliest main AR flex combinations that you could have there between those two. So Cammy and Attach, I think for me, that's the strongest part of the squad. Not that there's a weak part of the squad, but those two names for me, like you look at the roster as it's on screen, those two just immediately pop off the page. And then from there, Afro's a player that over the last year and a half has really started to make waves. Obviously got to start with the London Royal Ravens. And at first it was like, okay, well, this is another one of those squads that's bringing in some young talent. How is he going to perform when he comes into the league? And it seemed like, especially over the course of last year, as the season went on, he just cemented himself as a really solid player in the CDL. So I think moving forward, you're going to have to get the play from Afro. If you think about what's most important going into this MW2 season, I think you know what you're going to get out of Attach, and it's going to be really good. And you know what you're going to get out of Cammy. It's going to be really good. When it comes to Afro, I think he's going to have to be that player that shows up. And I think this squad can probably go as far as he can take them. So Afro, I'm looking for him to really be a leader coming into this squad for this first year. And then, of course, when it comes to Bance, and this is another thing where when you talk about the Toronto Ultra, when the Toronto Ultra were winning tournaments, it's when Bance was popping off. So you knew what you were going to get from Kleenex. You knew what you were going to get from Cammy. But when Bance showed up and had his best tournaments, that's when Toronto Ultra was making waves. So I think when it comes to consistency, if you can get that major in and major out when it comes to Bance, I think the sky's the limit for this squad. But just to kind of wrap it all up, I think the two cornerstones here, Attach and Cammy, I'm excited to see what Afro can do because, like I said, he kind of cemented himself over the course of the last season. And then if Bance can play where he's capable of, I think the sky's the limit for this squad.
Dude, you just gotta be so hyped, like all over again. Like, obviously, this roster was announced almost a couple months ago at this point, and I was super hyped then, and now it's kind of like I'm re-hype about it. Kingdom, I think we talked at length about the new Røkkr roster in the last episode. Feel free to pop any points that you want to add to what Ikon said, but I'd also love to know your thoughts on, like, you know, Call of Duty's this thing that, you know, they're all competing under generally similar rules on a brand new game, brand new in quotations, game every single year or season. How do you think this squad's going to adapt to a new game? You've got some savvy vets, you got some newer players. You know, what are you expecting out of the squad come Modern Warfare 2?
You know, I've seen Afro develop his talent over time a little bit, you know, not as much on the main stage, but I think this team is going to give him an opportunity. The game is going to be interesting, man. It's funny that these players have like less than, I think they have 5 exact weeks from when the game drops to when the first event is. And so it's going to be really interesting, but this team has so much raw talent that I think they will be able to adjust. And it's just going to be seen, can they come out of the gate and be successful? Every player on this team, I think, will be fine adjusting to a brand new game. I'm interested to see how they lean in, who's going to be the IGL and things like that. You know, Bance was such a key piece in terms of being a vocal leader on Toronto. And this almost feels like a better version of a Toronto team. It's weird to say that, but it's like almost, it's a very good gathering of EU players and Dylan. And they all have so much experience that I think they're going to be pretty successful. We'll see what happens with Bance and Afro being the sub duos, and hey Landon,
Yo, Lando, what's good?
Sub duos, and I'm interested to see if they work together as well as some of the other sub duos in the industry or in the game. But I honestly believe that they don't have to be, and that's what the Røkkr have consistently done. And what I'm looking for from this team, to be honest, is like last year, it was like they wouldn't consistently beat the teams that basically we would always rate beneath them, but then they would randomly beat teams that we would rate above them. And I think this is going to be a team that is going to consistently beat the teams beneath them if they can consistently place top 4, top 6. I know we want top 2, top 1, but I think this is a team that will be in the top half of contenders. I know we're not doing our tier list yet, but that's what I'm expecting regardless of the game. I just think their overall talent and savvy is going to be good with Modern Warfare 2. And after playing the game, this is one of the teams that I think will do very well.
Let's go. Oh, so dude, I just got hype. I'm getting hype again. I realized the time has been flying. I don't know about for you guys, but it's already halfway through October, which means a new Call of Duty
bananas,
which means CDL is almost back. And CDL is actually, starting in December this year, to the point that Kingdom just made. Like, we're going to get back into the action much faster. Before we were waiting till like the end of January, early February. No, I want to see competitive COD as soon as humanly possible. So I'm super stoked for that. That's going to be freaking awesome. Any other thoughts on just Røkkr start of the season, or do you guys want to argue for the next 30 minutes over the tier list? What are you guys feeling?
I mean,
All right, tier list
I'm
it
interested
is.
in these teams are interesting, man. I don't know if we're gonna argue or agree or what. These are really interesting teams, really interesting rosters.
We're about to find out. We are about to find out. All right, so let's pop into it then. We've got a whole entire tier list built. Shout out to producer Shannon, producer Will. Give them some love in the chat. They got us a little tier list going. So the tiers are champs, contenders, and I'm guessing that means like champs, and not like major champions. Because as we saw last year, major champions don't necessarily add up to the big one, the big tourney. Then we've got A, B, C. I might make up some inappropriate words for those, but for now we'll call them A, B, C. And then we've got roster change, question mark, because as is usual with Call of Duty League, there are a couple rosters, probably 2 or 3, that kind of end up with scrap players, and sometimes those teams can pop off a little bit. I think
Sometimes.
back to sometimes, man. I think back to year 1 when Paris Legion was popping off with Kismet and crew. So yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen with those kind of shoved together teams. But anyway, let's get into it. Should we start with Røkkr? I mean, I wish y'all would argue against me. This is a champs contender team. Nothing has changed since the last episode or any episode before that. I am drinking the purple Kool-Aid. I want to see them win. I want bands to teach me how to meditate. I think that Røkkr is a champs contender, but I want this tier list to be a bit unanimous, a little bit. Maybe I might, go Judge Judy on you, but no, I'm just kidding. But what do you guys think? Do you think Røkkr's like right off the rip champs contenders, or what tier would you guys put Røkkr into?
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I feel like in the back of my mind, I have a couple that I think are champs contenders, and I think I have a couple that are real close. And I think I want to see what the chemistry looks like between a Bance and an Afro and an Attach and a Cammy, like how they play together before I really put them as high as champs contenders. Like, can they win a major this year? Can they win champs? Absolutely, 1,000%. But I think to start the year, maybe to have them that high, I feel like there are rosters out there that have been playing this game for multiple years that have some team chemistry and they know what people are going to do on the map. So if we're talking about, hey, the game comes out in 10 days, where do we put Røkkr before, we're a month before the first tournament or whatever? Maybe that might be jumping the gun a little bit. I don't know. Just my thoughts.
Fight me. Nah. I think everything you just said, like, actually,
where'd you put him though?
Kind of add up. Yeah. What tier do you put him in based off what you said?
I would, for now, to start the year, I would put him at B, I think.
Okay, that's respectable.
You're
gonna be wrong, but
what I'll add to that real quick is I don't see him going beneath that, but I want to see stuff proven to me before I put him higher.
Got it. So the floor is high, but the ceiling's question mark.
Yes.
Got it. All right, Kingdom, what do you think? Are you with me in champs contenders? Are you A, B? Where you at?
I have like in my head where there's like 2 teams in champs contenders. So it's like 3 or 4 in A, 3 or 4 in B, and then the rest are in C or change roster. Like there's like 2 or 3 teams down there. I have them kind of where they are on the screen. Like, honestly, I would say they would be the 3rd or 4th team in A, or they would be the 1st or 2nd team in B. Like they would either be like at the top of B or at the bottom of A. I would want to say that they're going to be on the bottom side of A, especially as I look at other teams. Like, would I say that this is a top 6 team for sure? You know, like I would say that without even having to bat my eyes or talk about the roster success or that Attach was one of the top players in the league last year. Any of that. Like I wouldn't even end the chemistry that already is going to exist between two of these players. And then Afro's coming in. And like I've seen the videos you guys have already released. I've seen interviews from these guys, even on Landon's channel, who's in the chat. Like, and like seeing them talk about the next season, there's no question in my mind that they're top 6. It's not the kind of like, you know, at the beginning of the year Florida team where I'm always like, I have no idea. You know, so with this team, I would probably put them in the lower section of A. Like I think that they are, and there's some teams that people might say skill wise are better than the ROKKR, but if they were honest about like temperament and how the players are going to get along and what's going to happen if they lose, they would say they're much lower than the ROKKR. We've seen the ROKKR reverse. This team knows how to rebound. Their coaching staff knows how to rebound. So I would just love to see consistency. That's the thing we ask for every year, right? And this seems like a good, like, put together roster for that. So I'd have to put them in the bottom A, to be honest.
Nice. So it's unanimous. It's champs contenders. Thank you guys for your input. Just kidding. I think average.
You should put a ROKKR status like above everything.
Yeah, true. I think we average them out and put them in A there. Because I said champs, Kingdom said A, Ikon said B. Can't believe you gave him an A-, man. That's wild. I'm sorry. I'm just.
You are within your rights.
It's definitely because I'm at like ROKKR HQ every day, chatting with Attach in the kitchen, and like the vibes are good. And I'm just like, I don't know. I believe in this team. Sometimes blindly when things aren't going well, I'm like, oh no, we're still gonna win. I mean, for reference, every single football season, I say at the beginning, this is the year the Vikings win the Super Bowl. They're 5-1, by the way, which is, hey, we're doing something to get on our way there.
GG.
All right, so I think it might be kind of cool to go to Toronto Ultra next, considering we picked up half of last year's Toronto Ultra roster. So taking a look at who Ultra has now, they've got Kleenex, Insight, Scrappy, Standy, and Hixie. I think Hixie's the sub. Who's the sub there?
Hixie's the sub.
Hixie. Yep.
Okay. Damn, I don't know why I got like something crossed in my brain, but anyway, yeah, Hixie's a sub. So rip, man, I'm gonna miss Eli on Røkkr. I loved watching that guy play. He's electric. So him moving over to Toronto Ultra here, is kind of scary. Insight's insane. Kleenex is very, very consistent. And Scrappy and Hixie, especially Scrappy, he is somebody that really made a name for himself. Most recently with how he's been performing. So ultimately gets picked up onto a CDL starting roster here. And I'm pretty stoked to see how they kind of turn out. I think personally they most definitely like lost the off season if you're comparing Røkkr versus Ultra. I think that we got personally, in my opinion, I think we got Toronto Ultra's best player in Cammy. I will fight anyone in the comments who wants to put Cammy and Insight against each other. I think Cammy is just insane. And then obviously you have Bance, who's super consistent and, just a grizzled vet. So Toronto Ultra, with all that said, I think they're going to be a good team. I do think they have a great coaching staff over there. I don't know, man. Oh, there goes producer Shannon sneaking it up there, thinking, where is she going to say? What is she going to say? I'm going to go ahead and put them in A. They're not on the level of Røkkr, right? Nobody is. But I do still think this is going to be a really good team. I could put them in B as well. I think this is kind of like a question mark team. Like they could be insanely nasty and fast paced and like absolutely cracked and make multiple top 4, 3, or 2 runs, maybe even win one. But they could also like fall apart based on the experience on this team, in my opinion. So I put Ultra A with the possibility to like float down pretty fast if things don't go well for them right away. What do you guys think?
I have them in A as well. I think this team is kind of disgusting. I do think you guys, got the better combination of players altogether. I think Scrappy is unpredictable, great, phenomenal in challengers, and I got to see him in person. Kid is nuts. And I watched how he won and how he lost. And he took it on the chin when he lost. He gave his daps, because his former teammates were yelling at him, and it was like, he was doing a lot of yelling until then. So getting double, I think, best of five to lose, that's a hard loss, and he took it. And so I think he's going to work with the kind of vibe of Ultra, and he's going to turn it up a little bit. And he's scrappy. He's a young, scrappy player, and he's going to come into this league. And I don't know if we're going to see like a Shotzi type of player or a Pred, or I don't know what he's going to be, or a Hydra. He has a lot of upside. However, this team got rid of their coach, and they got rid of Bance. And Bance, I don't know who their coach is going to be yet, but Bance, he was that glue. He was that Zen, meditative, vocal leader that could kind of pull everybody together, even if it started with pulling himself together. This is a very talented team. Insight is gross. Standy had a bad year, and I think he's going to really want to turn it around. So they have a lot of potential, but they're missing some key pieces. Like, I don't know who the vocal kind of in-game person is going to be on the team, and I don't know who their coach is going to pull them together when some of the youth of this team starts to tear them apart. So I think they're missing some things, but honestly, their raw skill will keep them easily as a top 4, top 6 team. So I have to put them in A.
This is interesting. So I just kind of thinking where I think ROKKR's at. I put them somewhere around B, and I definitely think, at least as the season gets going here, I think the Toronto Ultra roster is worse than our roster is. So I personally, if this was like actually numbered, I would put them somewhere in the 6 to 8 range. And again, once the game comes out and we see some scrims and maybe the first major, of course, things are going to adjust. But if I look at this roster, I think their best player by far is Insight. I think what he's done since he's come into the league, he is super consistent. He plays really well. He always battles with the top ARs. And this has always kind of been a thing. Like, you get these AMs that come into the league, and it's like, okay, well, how are these guys going to play? And with Scrappy, I still think that there's questions out there. So coming off Toronto Ultra's academy team, we don't know exactly how he's going to play it. It's kind of one of those question marks. Standy's coming off a year that he probably isn't happy with. I mean, I think when he came into the league, we saw him in that first match against OpTic, and it was a 3-0, and he showed out, and he was unbelievable. And then as the next year or so went on, we kept saying, okay, if ROKKR is going to play well, he has to play like the Abizis of the world, the Shotzis of the world. And that wasn't quite as consistently happening as it was when he first came into the league. So for me, and you could also say the same thing for Kleenex. I think kind of when Toronto Ultra was at their highest point is when Kleenex was basically playing exactly like Abizi. Like, those two were 1 and 2 in terms of the pressure that they would apply and just how in your face Kleenex always was. And again, it seemed like even last year, as the year went on, it wasn't quite as consistent in that regards. So for me, I have questions for Toronto. I think that they can be a good team, but I think losing an IGL like Bance is really going to hurt. I think Cammy is the most level player in the CDL. When they win, you don't see him like throw off his headset and scream and yell. When they lose, you don't see him like chuck his headset. He is even keel all the time. And I think that's really important when you're talking about overall chemistry from a squad. So for me, when I compare them to ROKKR, I don't think that they're on the same level yet. But if we're staying with ROKKR at A, I think Toronto at least has to be B.
Yo, I'm low-key surprised by that, honestly. I do love your point, though, about them potentially, like, having a decently high ceiling, but probably starting slow as they figure out, who they are. This is the newest Ultra team I think we've ever seen, right? So that's going to be exciting to watch.
The really only question mark, though, is, in my opinion, I'm not questioning Scrappy. Like, I've heard pros say, like, no, this kid is ridiculous. Like, when he got on the sticks and took place of Toronto players, he would fry the pros, like he's great. The challenge to me is Standy. Like, if you have an inconsistent Standy here, I don't think this team can find a lot of success. still would say on paper going into the season at the first event, is this team going to place top 6? Yeah, they might place top 4. So I still have them in A. I don't know how we decide where they land. I don't know if we just go by majority rules.
Yeah, I don't know if we
have them in A, do they go to A?
Now that I've listened to just more, sound expert analysis, I wish there was a middle. Maybe I do wish there was an A- or a B+.
Well, you can put them top A or high B. We can put them in B for now and maybe move them. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, true.
I'd say they're an A tier team, but
let's put them into B. But if some other teams that we don't think are equal to the Ultra and B, we could bump up Ultra, and also we could maybe rank them within the tiers.
You can put it in order based on
like ROKKR. Obviously, is first in A, right? Champs contenders in my heart. All right, next team. By the way, we just took a significant amount of time and only got through 2 teams, so I'm gonna make this a tiny bit snappier. And this is one that I'm really, really excited to talk about. Is Paris Legion. We've got
Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I almost swore. Sorry about that. Sorry, YouTube. Don't demonetize or do anything like that. Yeah, sorry. It's the Las Vegas Legion. I don't like how that sounds. I'm still gonna call them. It is
Legion.
Oh, Legion. Yes, I'm still gonna call them the Baguettes, just for the French shout out. But here, so the roster confirmed: Clayster, Prolute, Temp, and TJ Hallie. This, to me, is the weirdest roster on paper. Well, one of the weirdest. I don't know.
I was going to say there's some other ones.
Florida's, what has happened? What is going on there? But yeah, so Paris Legion, we had the big moment in this offseason where Crimsix officially retires. I'm not sure. I mean, he mentioned that he just burned too many bridges and just he wasn't getting, a ton of reach outs from CDL orgs. Clayster, kind of a similar type of vibe, but he does end up landing himself a spot here on Las Vegas. I love that he's still playing because I've loved watching Clay since back in Black Ops 2. He showed up on LAN. I forget the team name, but I remember he teamed with this kid named Huddle, and they were like an insane duo. He showed up with a ponytail. He was screaming on the main stage. Like, he just brings the hype, and he's everything that, like, I love about CDL. Just raw, honest, sometimes to a fault. Like, he's just himself and brutally honest and expressive. So I love that. So I love that he's still in the league, but this roster is going to be like, I'm just going to put him in a tier. I said we weren't going to take 20 minutes. I'm going to put him in C or roster change. Nice, I don't know. I think, I mean, all right, and this is no disrespect to Clay because I just gushed about Clay, but like I could see this team struggling and Clayster not being on this team within 2 or 3 months. Or it'll go the other way, right? This is such a coin flip. Like, are they going to be mediocre or are they going to be horrific? It's hard to say. I'm going to put them at C just for the Clay vibes. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Like, is this an automatic, like, what are they doing? This is not going to work? Or are you guys willing to give Legion a chance here?
I'll go with this. Okay. I think that I think they have to be roster change. I think honestly for me, I just don't like this approach. I think when you look at, like, for example, we just looked at the Toronto Ultra, and when you have, a ton of potential in Scrappy and Standy and Kleenex, and you have all these players that just entered the league in the last year, they have all the potential. I just want to see it. This squad, I feel like you know what you're getting. And if they want to build their team around Clay, I think that's awesome. I think that if an org wants to do that, it can be very similar to what Seattle Surge did with Accuracy, right? You get your leader, your main AR, and then you bring in all the talent, the young guns around him. When it comes to Paris, I just feel like you kind of know what you get with TJ, and you know what you get with Temp. And when's the last time they've really been relevant in the CDL? I mean, it's not that they're playing bad. I think Temp was...
They won 2 matches all year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Temp was the best player on that squad last year, but it's still not saying much. To me, it seems very much so like, okay, well, this player's left over, so we'll grab him, and then there's Clayster, and then I don't know. To me, I just feel like this is a squad that we've seen this story how many times in professional Call of Duty, where you kind of get these guys that have been around for a long time, and you start to throw them into tournaments, and they just don't play well. They don't win qualifiers, and so for me, I just don't like this approach per se. So I'd put them in roster change.
Yeah, it's hard not to put him down there. Like, honestly, this is a team that, man, I love Clayster. And I think that Temp did the best he could. I think Clay, probably would have done a Crim. I don't think Crim tried very hard. I think he was honest in his video when he said, I didn't try very hard to get on a team. I took calls, but I didn't make any calls. I didn't DM anybody. I didn't reach out. I didn't try, And everybody that says he burned bridges, like, the dude played for only like 5 teams, and he brought a championship or at least a land victory, we'll say, for NYSL to every single team, and went to champs every year that he played. He has one of the highest averages and earnings in the history of our game. I think it's interesting, let's say that he's not in the league. Like, it's crazy that in other sports, LeBron can play forever as long as he's talented, and so can Brett Favre and Tom Brady. And I understand that Crim is not, dropping like what Scump is doing, still dropping ridiculous numbers and things like that. But Crim knows how to get people to top 2 at least once a year, maybe twice, maybe 3 or 4 times, maybe dynasty after dynasty after dynasty. And so I think Clay is a similar player, man. And it's so sad that this is the way he might go out. At least Crim has a story to tell, and I think Clay doesn't have the content vibe to do what Crim is doing or trying to do yet. And I hope that Clay makes the most of this experience, but will this roster catch a whole bunch of W's? I don't think so. I think that they're a good team in terms of individual skill. TJ's good. ProLute showed up when he had to play for OpTic a little bit. I think they'll win a couple matches, but probably more than last year. But I don't see him placing top 6 at most events. So I'm roster change.
All right, let's slam them down there. It's going to be crazy. In 3 months, they're either going to be blown up or mad decent, as I like to say. What team do you guys think we should do next? Just pick one real quick, 3 seconds.
LAG.
I heard Ikon louder than Kingdom. I actually didn't hear what Kingdom said, so let's do the lag, the Guerrillas. They started really hot last season. They actually won the Minnesota Major. They took home the Shield from Minnesota, and it both pissed me off and made me really happy for them. But looking at this team now, they have where did it go? There we go. They picked up Arcities, right, from FaZe, which I think is. They signed him to like a 3-year deal, dude. Like, that's, I think, one of the first of its kind in CDL. It is a huge dedication.
He's gonna get to do what he wants over there.
Literally, he is like whoever he wants. They are gonna try to get for him. It seems like. Interestingly enough, they also did a 3-year deal for Spart. Now, I obviously in my first year here, I had a lot more involvement and knowledge about our initial roster and how those contracts work. I actually am not sure what the team can actually do in those 3 years. Like, can they just drop them whenever?
I think it's a 1+1+1. Yeah, so it's not.
So you just keep plus and 1. You're not just like stuck with the player. Okay. But they did that for Spart as well. So they just showed a massive dedication to Spart and Arcities. And then you have Hook the Nuke and Neptune, who I think both of those players can be nasty. Arcities was named as one of the, one of the top leaders in CDL while he was on FaZe. I think he did a great job. And so now he comes over to LAG, and I'm super interested to see, how this squad actually does. With all that said, to not make this a 3-hour...
I can go first because I'll be quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Where are you putting them?
So if Ultra's in B, I might have to put them in C. That's hard. If Ultra's in A, where I had him, I'd put Lag in B. I think that Arcities, being the biggest earner ever, I think he's going to do a great job here. And I think if it doesn't work out, he's going to make a roster change that does work. They probably, I'm sure, have enough money there to move around Hook or Neptune if they don't work. So I'm gonna say I'd like to put him in B.
I can agree with
I look
that.
at this. I look at this, and I would put him at C. I think the approach that I said with Clayster at Paris, if you want to have Clayster and then bring in talent around him, that's great. That's kind of what LAG's doing here. And there's not really anybody better. If you're going to bring in a main AR to lead your roster, Varsity is basically as good as it gets. But after that, I just feel like there's question marks. Like, same thing with Hook. When's the last time that Hook's been a dominant player? It's all the way back when he was with Dallas, when that was still a thing. With Neptune, Neptune went from, Florida to NYSL to, and again, it's kind of been tumultuous his last couple stops. Same with Spark. Spark came in, they won the ROKKR major. He was MVP. And then it wasn't very long after that. He wasn't on the roster anymore.
Yeah.
Vote got patched.
C works. C works. I can agree with the C.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think Arcides will get it figured out. I think that's a tremendous starting point for that organization. But this roster, as I see it right now, I'm not sure they can compete with the ROKKRs and the Ultras of the world.
I love it. I'm aligned, honestly. So I mean, it's tough when you put them in a tier and then like you guys make hella good points right after, and I'm like, man, let me rethink this one a little bit. Let me go back to the drawing board. But all right, I'm gonna pick. Speaking of NYSL,
spread out evenly. That's great.
Yeah, dude, it is. Look at us go. I'm gonna go with NYSW, as Kingdom would say. Kingdom, I want you first on this. NYSL. Obviously, you were a massive fan last year because of the Clay and Krim dynamic. Now that those two guys are no longer on the team, your face says it all. What are you thinking about this roster? They've got Priesta, Hydra, Skies, Kismet.
So I think this team should be an A team. I think this team will be a C team. Very similar to last year's NYSL. They kept putting these great rosters together and couldn't get good results. And it was like they stole a couple good ones towards the end of the year because Krim was like, I'm not going out like that. But realistically, Priesta hasn't shown up for a couple of years. And maybe it's the setup, maybe it's the situation, maybe it's who he is playing with. I don't know if Kismet or Skies, who could be the vocal leader on this team, who's going to be the IGL. Crim6 mentioned that Kismet was really good and that Krim himself listened to him. But are these players going to listen to Kismet? We know of the internal struggles of Hydra teams in the past. Is he going to have a quick grow up and grind approach to this year? I don't know. They should be an A team with this roster and with one of the best players we've ever seen, but they're probably going to be a C team.
I think that's go ahead, Ikon.
Yeah, no, I was going to agree. I would also put them in C. I think when you kind of look at this squad, I think Hydra is nasty and Skies has been really good for a couple years. Like for a while, Skies was in that A tier when it comes to main ARs, and then maybe a little bit more inconsistent last year. But when you look at those two, yeah, the sky's the limit. But Priesta has been up and down as he was, with his tenure there at ROKKR. Kismet, even though, Krim might have said good leader, so on and so forth, he was really just kind of middle of the road last year when he got his chance at NYSL. And then you have to bring into question, who is going to be that leader and who's going to listen to who. And if you have Clay and Krim, and then you have Krim and, just the mix of these players really couldn't figure it out, I'm just not sure that I can, I guess when I look at these squads, I try to think, what's the path to a victory for an NYSL type squad? And I just don't see it. I really don't. I think Hydra's nasty. Skies can be one of the best in the game, but there's just a ton of questions. So I'd put them right there along LAG.
I am so excited once we finish this tier list to screenshot it and talk about it again in about 10 months after champs. I think it'll be super interesting to see kind of where teams wind up. I mean, obviously there'll be a ton of team changes, I'm sure, and adjustments, but yeah, it's always interesting to just kind of say, hey, for sure this is going to happen. So speaking of a for sure this is going to happen team, let's talk about FaZe. FaZe made,
curious of Ikon's super class heaven status that he's going to give them.
Dude, yes. Like, if they were like a dynasty super team, massive mega team before, like they just, I mean, and it's no dirt on Arcities. I do think Arcities is probably top one, top two potentially at times AR in the league. Nobody roast me for that. That's my opinion. Call my
No, that's
publicist.
facts.
I'm looking at Slasher joining this FaZe lineup, so it's a BZ, Celium, Simp, and Slasher. I'll just be honest, like Slasher was one of the players when we were first building the Minnesota ROKKR roster just over 3 years ago. I was aggressively trying to get Slasher to build around. And instead of a team building around Slasher like we've seen the past couple years with him, he joins this elite squad with a BZ Celium and Simp. So I'm just has to be a champs contender. There's really no debate in my mind. But yeah, this roster's super sick. Icon, is this a super team V2?
I don't know if it's a super team, but they're definitely a champs contender. So when I look at, I've thought many times, like what went wrong with Atlanta FaZe last year? And not that they like ever had a major where like they finished 8th, 9th or something. Like they were right there in every major, but why couldn't they get over the hump? And I think this move to bring in Slasher is exactly what they need. Because when you think of their old roster with Arcities, you think, okay, a Beezy and Celium and Simp and Arcees, they all kind of seem like easygoing guys. Like, yes, they're competitive. They want to win. They have more talent than any team in any sport anywhere. I mean, you can't question their natural God-given talent. It's just they're insane. But do they have that edge that championship winning teams have? And I'm not sure that I have ever really seen that out of their old roster. And I think if you were to say who in the CDL does have that edge, it's clearly Slashers in that group of players. I mean, I don't think there's any question about it. So when it comes to, film study and getting ready for tournaments and making sure everybody's focused and that they're not like goofing off and wasting scrims or whatever, I feel like Slasher is the type of player that's going to be able to set them straight, get them focused, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing all the time. And I want to see it again before I say, okay, this is the phase of old where like they basically were automatic to win every tournament. But I think that this definitely makes them better than they were with Arcities, even though if you just talk about like gun skill and natural talent, I'm not sure Slasher's that necessarily a better player than Arcities if you're just talking about gun skill. But all of those intangibles that he brings to the table, I think that makes a big difference for the SMGs and Celium.
I think people will flame me if I say anything other than champs contender, but I think we're giving way too much credit to Slasher, and I love Austin, but like honestly, if this was Dashy, if this was Octane, if this was name a Shotzi as main AR, this would be a champs contending team. It's the other three guys that make this team so excellent. Like all Slasher has to do is his job. Like everybody that said that, like Slasher just needs to show up and do his job. What's the job of the main AR in this game in Modern Warfare 2? I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be overly vocal. I'm not going to get ridiculous. I'm not going to mess up the vibes of the team. I'm going to make it so that these three guys can be the three best players in the league. And they've basically all three of them been top 5 for like every year they've played. And so like this team is disgusting. It's so hard to put them anywhere other than champs contenders. However, I don't think Slasher makes them better or worse. I think, honestly, if this was Octane, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that team is so disgusting. If this was Dashy, I don't know if there's a bad A. You might even convince me if you put Dave Patty on there, I'd be like, they're champs contenders because of those other three guys. Like at the end of the day, I think that if those three guys stay together, they're going to be like, Steph, Draymond, and Clay, who got another championship last year. Like, I honestly I see a lot for those three guys, and I think they picked a player that vibes with their like attitude, and that's what Arcities was unable to lead anymore. He's a great leader, phenomenal. Everybody says it, but I don't think he could lead those guys anymore. And maybe Slasher is going to be able to and whip them into shape and treat them like little tiny terrors.
Slasher is intense. He's intense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Maybe they need an intense guy.
Yep.
And what's interesting,
Yeah.
and I've always thought this about Slasher since way back in the day when him and Aches teamed. I think it was during Black Ops 3. It was live on Twitch, dude. Like they were fighting in scrims, like on stream. I still remember it.
Oh my gosh.
It's
He's
legendary,
intense.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so when you have two really strong personalities on a team, it can sometimes, I mean, a little bit more recently, like Crim and Clay. That's maybe.
But when
more
they win, oh my
it's
gosh,
like
I'm getting off of Twitter. That's like Aches catching a W. Like
Yeah.
when FaZe wins matches, the Slasher's gonna create new like memes that we haven't even seen yet. It's
Yeah.
gonna be ridiculous.
It's gonna be wild. But Kingdom, I was making some faces during your take, and I almost giggled a little bit just because I knew I looked ridiculous while I was doing it. I love, like, I feel like our podcast is a good rotation of, like, you guys are kind of polar opposites most of the time. And then I'm like in the middle, literally in the middle, like I can see both sides, like I think we just hold different opinion of Slasher. I think Slasher makes his team better.
Same.
But time will tell,
Yeah.
and honestly, time is going really fast. So I hope it keeps going fast so we can get to CDL season. Speaking of fast, let's do this quickly. London Royal Ravens, unconfirmed roster here, but it's pretty much one of those things where it's all but confirmed. You've got Asim, he goes by both, Paul X, Nasty, and Zero. Please don't get mad at me, British folk, but this is a roster change in 70 days. I know it's a random number, but
I agree.
this is a quick one.
I love Asim. He's such a cool dude.
I do too. He's
like the old
person,
apathy to me, man. He just can't find himself on like a really amazing super roster that fits his talents, and he's so hard to figure out how to play around him. And that was apathy to me, and it's unfortunate, but yeah, roster change.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's the one that if you're London, you want to build around, but you kind of have Paul X, who has been in and out of a couple rosters, hasn't really. I mean, he's been okay, but he hasn't been great. He hasn't been fantastic. You have Zero that's been in and out of a couple. I mean, you can kind of say the same thing about the other two players on that roster.
Yep.
I do want to see Asim have success. I'm not sure this is.
I hope so. He can stay in the league. Honestly, that's like all I really like. He sat out for so long last year. I just hope he gets a long opportunity.
Yep.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I hate calling teams like bad because it ultimately and it's designed like this. Every competitive league is designed like this for there to be, a lot of opportunities for even some of the quote unquote, worse off teams to catch a dub, to make things close, because obviously competitive and compelling gameplay is what pushes this thing. But hopefully, maybe we're wrong. But also, looks like Legion and Ravens will make roster changes somewhat soon. A team that made a ton of roster changes the year before last, or season before last, and then kind of decided to stick it out a little bit this past season, LA Thieves. They win the last two events of the year. That is very rare. That doesn't happen very much in Call of Duty. They're freaking legendary. Yep, look at them go. There they are in the picture. You've got Draza, Envoy, Kenny, and Octane. I wouldn't have made a team change either. Look at how hyped they are. What do you guys think about this team going into Modern Warfare 2? Are they just won champs, so it's super hard not to put them in champs contenders. But my question for you guys is, if we're gonna put them in order in the tier, who goes first, FaZe or LAT?
Oh my gosh. I listened to this debate earlier from some other people. It is a hard choice for me, but hearing the story from Octane towards the end of the year of how they basically broke up but didn't, and gave it a last chance effort, and it worked, and they stuck it out. It just makes me think this is that old school TK team that Kenny was on, except it's the end of the year instead of the beginning. So they got a couple chips, but it's not like they're gonna carry over into a new title like an old Complexity or EG team, or OpTic, and so, or FaZe. So I'd say they're the second on this list of two champs contenders, but I can't not put them in there because they did win. They did have chemistry. They did figure it out at the end of the year. I just don't know if this game is the same. You know, they figured out the game at the end of the year, and that's what changed for them. I don't know if everybody's going to they're going to try to figure this new game out, and nobody's going to because they only have like 5 weeks. So I think they're behind FaZe on raw skill at the beginning.
Yeah, I think just based on how they finished the year last year, they have to be in champs contenders. I do think that they've figured it out. I think they have all that it takes. I think, you know, at least with how Vanguard ended when it comes to roles and where they were at and how they were playing, it fit that game perfectly.
100%.
And that's why, like, the last 2 tournaments, it really wasn't even close. I mean, they were far and away the best team. Now, you could say this about basically every one of these rosters, like, how are they going to fit with, you know, MW2 when it comes out? But for me, and I don't really know why I always end up leaning this way, but I still think as long as aBeZy and Celium and Simp are together, I feel like going into a new game when there's so many question marks, those are the 3. And, you know, you can put RCDs or Slasher or any other main AR you want. If those guys are together, I feel like, okay, here's a new game. It's got to be those
Top
guys
2.
in that number 1 position. Yeah. So I'll put them as second, but they definitely deserve to be there in champs contenders.
They should be in that tier. Part of me is like, the logical side of my brain is saying, dude, it's FaZe. They needed to get over this hump. Slasher, in my opinion, without seeing literally anything, is going to get him over the hump. But then my heart is like, dude, this LA Thieves roster's nasty. You know, obviously knowing Nate and just the whole evolution of LA Thieves from where they started to where they are now, like, I'm glad that they won, right? It makes me happy. But I can't put them ahead of FaZe. I think we'll keep them right here.
Yeah.
Speaking of teams that make me happy when they win, as long as it's not against Minnesota ROKKR, OpTic Texas.
Oh gosh.
This is another roster that they did stick, but there was not without drama. All right, we've beat the topic to death, but we'll just mention, you know, they did announce that Illy and Dashi were restricted free agents and, you know, open to talk with other teams. And then between 24 to 36 hours later, they tweeted that they're keeping the same roster. So it appears as though something was about to happen, and I actually really, really, really wonder what was about to happen. But, you know, maybe it fell through. Something just didn't complete, and then they said, you know, listening. I do watch a lot of the OpTic content, and so listening to them talk about it on their podcast, they mention a lot of like, no, we just needed to like really talk things out and like really come to a conclusion together. Who knows if that's true or PR type stuff, but I think this is a long-winded way of me saying it seemed like they wanted to make a team change, but then ultimately they didn't. And I think, you know, there could be multiple reasons for that, right? Something falls through, you know, whoever you were trying to get goes to another team because the other team offers more money or whatever the heck happens, or they want a team with a certain person. Like, it's always hard in roster mania. It's really hard to get exactly who you want on the team. And I think y'all already know my answer, bro. It's A. It's A. But, and so we're to say this as a former OpTic member for 9 years, I do got to put them behind Røkkr. Just, you know, just because. But they're very close. It's like 1A, 1B. Anyway, I just talked for a lot. I could talk forever about OpTic and Call of Duty. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. Do you guys put OpTic in A, B, champs contenders? Where are they at with the same roster from last year?
I think I'll probably be quicker with this one, and maybe it'll surprise some folks. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But you look at this roster across the board and you're like, Dashi, all the talent in the world. Shotzzy could be the best player in the world. Illy, with, you know, if his thumb is healed and, you know, he's in the right mindset, could be the best flex in the world. And Scump obviously still doing what Scump's doing. And we say the same thing every year about these 4 players. They come out, they win their first major, and then they like, this is the year that OpTic comes back and they're going to win champs, and then they just fizzle out. It's like at the beginning of every year, they're like that team. Okay, maybe this is the OpTic that goes and challenges FaZe, and maybe this is their year. And then after you see this, like 3 or 4 iterations of this team, and they're still doing the same thing, it's like, at what point in time do you say, okay, these guys are the most talented players in the world, but it just, for whatever reason, there's just underlying circumstances where it just doesn't play out that way. I think you have to put them in A. I think maybe to start the game, just because this is how they come out every year, I think they'd probably be ahead of Røkkr. But when I look at like the future and I look about the excitement leading into this year and like where teams can develop, I look at Røkkr and I'm like, I think the sky is the limit, and I'm excited to see how they develop from the beginning of the game to the first and second major and how things develop. Whereas for this, I look at OpTic and I say all the talent in the world, but what's going to make them fall off this year? So I think if I'm staying just the first month and the first major or whatever the case may be, probably put them in that A tier as like the 3rd team, maybe the 4th team in the CDL. So maybe ahead of Røkkr, but I just don't have the same excitement as the year rolls on as I will some of these other squads.
Nice. Great points. Kingdom, settle the tie between Ikon and I. Do you put OpTic ahead of Røkkr in the tier? Do you even have them in A tier? Where do you have OpTic?
So this is hard, man. So like, I think if OpTic played Røkkr right now, they might win. I think if they played Ultra right now, though, they might lose. Like, this team is a weird. Ikon made a lot of good points that I was gonna touch on about. They should be the 2nd best team in the CDL. It shouldn't even be a question. But iLLeY got hurt. Like, they literally should be number 2 behind FaZe, and they were for 5 minutes before iLLeY got hurt. Like, it was like they won the first major, like, oh, this is the team. This is going to be the dynasty, the Green Wall. And then it just crumbled. And they still got top 4 champs, though. Like, so I know this team is going to be hungry, but Ake said something really smart on the flank the other day. Like, unfortunately, it is very difficult for professional Call of Duty players to take things like getting dropped on the chin. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know if Shotzzy was going to go somewhere else, and then to keep him, he was like, you got to pay me, but you also have to keep iLLeY and Dashy. Like, you have to give those guys a chance because I want to be a nice guy. I have no idea what happened in that camp. Like, it's mind blowing to think about it. I've heard Seth talk about it. I've heard everybody talk about it. The team is where I'm concerned, and it's very similar to NYSL in my head, where this should be champs contenders without us even batting an eye. Looking at this roster, they should like Dashy had one of the best KDs in the league last year. This shouldn't even be a question with these 4 players. And Seth's last or second to last year, I think Shotzzy was right. If they don't do good this year, he's not coming back for the second one in Modern Warfare 2. And so, like, if that's an actual option and Seth could walk away, then my hope is that they are champs contenders the entire year and they place top 2 in every tournament so I can get another year of Scumpy. But it's like, where are they actually going to place? It's hard for me to say that they're that far above even Ultra, because if they went up against each other right now, I would probably say Ultra would win, but it has to do with some of the leftover garbage from the weirdest thing OpTic's ever done with the whole drop and not drop and pick up, and like, it was so strange and uncharacteristic of them. But
yeah, nothing like that has ever happened. I mean, no. Obviously when Scump went to Envy for like 2 weeks, that was a really weird time. And
okay, that was, yeah.
We don't talk about those dark times, but yeah, I mean, even like during a roster mania period, like that was a random thing that happened. Like Seth rage quit for a little bit and then came back. This was like, hey, organization, let's make this statement and allow these players to go shop.
That's what they were doing.
OpTic doesn't do that, though.
No. When it's over, it's over. Like, yeah. Hector's very good to players, and if they want to go somewhere, he normally lets them go somewhere, or he works with them to get to the team they want to go to. This was like, in my opinion, what happened is, and a lot of people have talked about it, the players found out before they were supposed to, and this is the same thing that happened to Alec on FaZe. He said he found out, he was like, wait, are you guys shopping for an AR? Like, what's happening? And then he was like, I'm leaving. And they probably would have kept him because they wouldn't have found anybody. And then they got Slasher, and it was a great trade. It worked out, but it's like, I think for OpTic, like, they were going to actually drop these guys. They found out they had to put out a tweet and make it a thing and give them the opportunity to find something else. Maybe we don't know. This could be a great move by Hector, what I'm saying, to get these guys more than they we're going to get originally. You never know. He's a nice guy, because maybe they shopped themselves and then came back to OpTic like, yo, I'm going to ask for a little bit more now because, FaZe wants to pay me. I don't know. I just think it's awkward, and I hope Illy's thumb is 100% healed, and that does not come up at all, because Scump will lose it. And I think that's like career ending for Scump if Illy goes down and they can't be the OpTic that they want to be. And so, man, I'm gonna say A, just because it's so hard to put this roster anywhere else, especially when they should be next to FaZe above LA Thieves. So yeah, I'll put him in A behind the Røkkr.
But purposefully behind the Røkkr?
Hey, look, I got to score some points here, Ikon. I don't have the purple background and everything,
Oh, man, you guys are hilarious. I mean, dude, we only have 3 teams left. I feel like...
All right, we got this. We can close it out.
So much. All right, Boston Breach. Let's go, BB. Weirdest logo in the league, in my opinion. Not a massive fan. I mean, actually not. I don't like Ultra's logo. Sorry to just absolutely trash.
So you don't like colors you don't like teams that conflict with either former teams you were a part of or current teams.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I just see the X Disney logo is what I see when I see the Breach logo. But anyway, neither here nor there. We got Methods, we got Nero, we got Big Wake, and we have Vivid. This is kind of a nasty team. It's like LAG V2.5. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Methods. I know there's been multiple teams now where I'm just I really like this player I've been watching for a long time. But I do think Zinni before last year was very probably more underrated than he's ever been. And he showed out. I do still think he has it. I am a little bit worried about just how Nero works into this. I think expectations wise for Nero, you try not to have huge expectations for a newer player that's still just working their way up, but I think a lot of people expected Nero to be absolutely nasty crazy, the next big thing when he came up, and he hasn't been so far. So yo, show me the tier list again. There you go. Thanks, producer Shannon. I'm gonna put them at C.
Even. This is weird.
I know. I'm gonna put them at C, but I'm gonna put them the first team in C. Yeah, I mean they're where they are now. Obviously, I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I put them right there.
Right in the middle.
I put them in the middle. Yeah, because
a little sandwich.
So this team has a lot of potential, a lot of promise. I'm worried about how Nero and Vivid play. They're both break the hill, run and gun, and then I'm wondering how that's gonna work. I'm wondering how this team is just gonna work in general. Who's going to be the kind of in-game, out loud person? Are they going to be locked in search? Is this roster going to be able to work out in search? I don't know. And I think they have a lot of potential. Zinni has a lot of experience. He's a veteran. Yeah, it's so hard. Them and the Guerrillas both. I don't even know who to put on top of the other team.
That's true. Maybe I do want them after LAG, but before New York.
I mean, it's a slay fest there, right? You got a good number of slayers there, but what do you do with it? And so I'm interested to see how they handle that, because they got a lot of slayers on the roster. And that means maybe they can make some matches interesting, but I think there's going to be pacing issues. So but they have Beans on the bench. You never know. Everybody's been talking about him. So, yeah, I'd put him in C. I don't know. Let Ikon be the deciding vote where they go. But
all right, Ikon, where you got Breach?
Yeah, I actually think that Guerrillas and Breach are almost like the same team. I really do. But I think the difference maker for me is I think LAG can be a better squad, because when you're comparing two squads that are very similar, sometimes it comes down to who has the best player. And I don't think there's any question that in that pool of 8 players, Arcitys is far and away the best player. And if you were to just rank them 1 through 8, Huke also has the ability, and we haven't seen it for a couple years, but if you look at those 8 players, he has the ability to be the best player in that pool. Yeah, I mean, so when I compare those two teams, I think that they're very similar. I'm not necessarily very high on Neptune and Spart, but I'm also not very high on Nero. I think if you were to go, player by player, Methods was really good last year. It was nice to see him have some success because it's been a while for Methods. Awakening, there was a time where Awakening and Skies were like the best main AR flex combo. Not last year, but the previous year. I mean, those two had all the talent in the world. They just couldn't really get on the same page. But overall, I mean, I look at these two teams. I think that they're very similar. I just think that, Arcides is one of the best players in the world, and Hook has the ability to be. So I'll put him at C, but behind LAG.
Let's go, dude. We're almost done. All right, let's go Florida Mutineers. What is going on in Florida? The heat is getting to them. I'm sorry. I love their branding, I will say. And obviously, much love to Major Maniac. He was just on Røkkr for 2 years. Absolute sweetheart of a guy. Very cool. Super fun to talk to. Havoc, obviously, former Røkkr player. So, you have Brack, who was in the CDL as a pro for, I think, the first year. And then maybe like Fringe the second year. Goes down to Challengers. Absolutely struggles to get back, and I don't mean struggles as in failed, but goes through Challengers to get back on a starting lineup. Here you see him with Dave Patty, Havoc, Major Maniac, and then Vickle. Is that how you say that? Vickle? Vickle?
Yep.
I don't know about that gamer tag.
Yeah,
we should help him rebrand. we should Vickle, give us a call. We will help you. Who knows? Maybe there's a cool backstory. But anyway, Florida Mutineers, they were once good since CDL started. They have been decent, and I don't know what keeps happening, but they keep getting less decent and not very good. I'm sorry to not just put any finesse on the analysis there, but they are just not very good. I can't put them next to NYSL, Breach, and LAG. I think this team has historically made a lot of roster changes, not like Røkkr hasn't, right? But I do think that over the course of every roster change that Røkkr's made, we've improved, right? And especially I think this is the best roster we've ever had going into a season, whereas Florida is still kind of on the struggle bus. So Florida roster change, I think they like to do that, and they will do that again very soon. Ikon, I'll let you go back to back here. Oh, sorry. Kingdom just raised his hand, though. He said, hold on.
I think this is a C team for sure. I think they are a dark horse. So the storylines is why I think that. Like, Vickle and Brack were teammates. They won Challengers champs. Vickle has been to both of the last two Challengers champs and was dropped by the team Toronto Ultra that he went with 2 years ago, and has said that his main mission on the planet is to be better than Scrappy, is to be the Rookie of the Year, is to look better than Scrappy, to outplay Scrappy. He's actually pretty good. Like, Vickle's disgusting. Brack, a lot of people slept on him because he didn't have a great stint in the league, but he's been great in Challengers. And I watched him win champs, and I got to talk to him about it. Like, those guys can play good together. And so they have some chemistry coming into this. It's really going to be like, and you got Major, who always is on a revenge tour from any team that he doesn't play for anymore. Like, he's played for some really exceptional rosters and orgs, and he's like, all right, I'm on the Mutineers now. I'm going to do this, and I think there's a possibility that they lean into his leadership, because none of us can say that this isn't a good search team. And that's 2 game modes, right? If they can get to game 5, this team can go toe to toe with most of the teams on this tier list in terms of search and destroy. And so I'm honestly, and again, with the Brack and Vickle, we're talking about 2 best of 5s that they basically went back to back on the number 1 team in Challengers, which was the Toronto Ultra, that had the chance at winning back-to-back champs. And Vickle beat Scrappy, his freaking nemesis. And I think he has something to prove. I think he's going to play well. I think Brack is going to play well. And what these guys did when they were interviewed is they talked so much about how they just played together as a team and did what was right. If they bring that to the CDL, and they're a dark horse, so they're already going to get played. Like, people are going to do that stupid thing where they don't play as well because they think this is an easy team to play against. You know what I'm saying? They're going to play around a little bit, and they could pick up W's on an OpTic, on an Ultra. Like, some of these teams that are on this list, on a Thieves even. So I'm saying they're a C. I honestly wouldn't change this roster. the Dave Patty meme is weird. This roster is weird. I'm not stupid. Maybe this is a financial play because these aren't very expensive players that they got. But I think Major may be able to lean into a leadership opportunity and this be one of those teams that's like, crap, we have to play the stupid Mariners again, or Mutineers again, that annoying team that seems to be well prepared, so I'm going to put them in C. I know I'm a little passionate about that, but I don't think they're a roster change team. That's just my opinion.
Kingdom, we next season need a segment called Change My Mind with Kingdom because you just helped me change my mind from roster change to like motivated amateur, veteran who's gonna be able to dig them out of it. Like, maybe you're right, low key. Ikon, weigh in. I do still lean roster change, but I do think I'm gonna be following along with everything that Kingdom just talked about next season. Where do you put Florida Mutineers?
I think the position that they're in right now is they're either the worst team in the C tier or the best team in that roster change tier. For me personally, I put them above Vegas. I wonder how long we're going to say that for.
I know. It's tough because the image says it still, so I'm just like...
Yeah.
Wait, they revealed branding?
I think it's just the same.
Not new branding. No, they haven't revealed new branding.
They're tweeting Vegas?
It just says Vegas, but it's the same little Paris sign.
Right.
So they're probably coming up with something.
That's hard.
It's going to be a casino, something.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at the approach that Florida's taking. I don't think when it just comes down to talent, I don't think they have the same names and the same talent as like an LAG or an NYSL. But just because I like the approach that they're taking going into the year, like I want to see how Florida plays. I want to see like when they start to have matchups and they get to the first major. Like I think there's some intrigue in terms of how those players that were AMs last year are going to turn out. Yep. So I agree. I think they should be in C. I like the fact that just kind of like Seattle Surge, right? When Seattle Surge really started to make their run, they took accuracy, they took some of those AMs, those top AMs, and then they made a run, and now look at where Seattle's at. And I don't know I think Major Maniac and accuracy are probably somewhat comparable in terms of what they bring to the table. But you have, okay, let's get our vet, and then let's take some of the top AMs, and let's see what happens. So I think this is one of the ones where you said it, kind of at the beginning of this podcast, let's take a screenshot of this and see where it ends up 6 months from now or whatever. I think that's a squad where we could be, okay, that take was terrible. They did not turn out. They should have been a roster change. Or you could say, I can't believe we had them all the way down in C because they could place top 4 or 5
that's
at
true.
champs.
That's facts.
So that's if you talk about question marks coming into the year, I think that's probably the team that has the most question marks in terms of, are they going to be top 4 or are they going to be 11, 12?
Damn. I mean, I think 11, 12, maybe 9th, on a good day. I'm just kidding. I do think, like I said, every team in the CDL, these players are here for a reason. They've grinded to get here. If it's not like they're just like, oh, we'll pick you up, person at GameStop that thinks they're really, really good. Like, it takes years to get to this point.
Right. That's
and
good. Yeah.
Upsets happen. There's a lot of events this year. Like, it's going to be nuts, man. It's going to be nuts to see, like, the storylines as they go. Speaking of a storyline as they go, Seattle Surge. Historically terrible team in CDL in the first 2 seasons. Big ups to Joey Nubsy. They may get a roster change last year and absolutely go off. They win. They won. Is my memory?
Yeah, they won.
Am I okay? I was like, am I losing my mind? Yeah, they won. Accuracy,
Rookie of the Year.
Mac, Pred, Rookie of the Year, Galdang, and you got Sib. Dude, Pred's jacked too. Like, that has to help. So this team is really, really good, right? Like, I love this team when I saw it get formed. Speaking of digging up old takes, someone find the episode where I said that Seattle Surge was going to be freaking nasty, and you guys seem kind of lukewarm on them. Someone's got to find the clip just so I could feel cool. But yeah, I think this team is still nasty. They didn't make a change. They obviously started to underperform probably their expectations and their fans' expectations after winning an event last year, but Rookie of the year, I would say like one of the best vets that you could ever have on your team in accuracy. I put them in A tier. And I put them just behind OpTic. Just that's where I put them. But this is we're a unified tier list here on the rotation. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Where do you put Surge? Are they in the A tier like I just put them? Where would you put them ranked in the A tier or whatever tier?
I'll say that I think they finished champs last year as the third best team. I think right now you have to say they're the third best team. I would put them in A tier, and I would put them as the first team in A tier personally, just because when it comes to their natural talent, I think Pred and Sib last year were, maybe two of the top 10 or 12 players in the CDL. Pred was absolutely nasty. I think he cemented himself throughout the course of the Vanguard season as, one of those top 5 or 6 or 7 players somewhere in there in the CDL. And for me, I always kind of come back to this when it comes to where I'm putting teams at the beginning of the year. For me personally, I've seen them do it, and I've seen them do it consistently, and I've seen them do it at the end of last year. Whereas when you talk about like motivation and what things are going to get in the way, and what questions are going to arise, it feels like there's always something with OpTic. And although I feel like Røkkr has all the potential in the world, I want to see how Bance and Afro played together. I think that's probably the biggest question mark for me, because Attach is nasty, Cammy's nasty, but there's still a question mark. Whereas for me, I've seen it out of Seattle. I just feel like I have more confidence in them than I do OpTic. Maybe not the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, but if you're talking about, the entire season or how this year is going to go, I feel like they're a squad that's never going to stop working. That's just kind of what accuracy is, right? He never stops working. He's always grinding, always trying to make his teams better. And you've got two of the most talented dudes in the CDL in Pred and Sib. So I would put them as the third best team in the CDL, at least to start here, and kind of see where it goes in the first 4 weeks or so.
I have to agree. I almost want to put them in champs, but I think that should stay as 2 teams, the top 2. I think that Seattle Surge team is gross, and it just really depends on how they start the year. I have a hard time putting them anywhere other than third, not just because they won last year, but it was how they won. And to be honest, Pred was the best player at champs, and so like watching like what he did to these professional players that have been playing this game for 10 years and longer, and imagining, and I've heard these rumors that he actually isn't a slide cancel king. He's a movement king, and he's like Shotzi more than he is like, I guess, Simp and Celium, like overusing the environment. And I think that this game is going to put him in a position to fry. And Rookie of the Year, he could have been MVP as well. He just was that good, and Lamar keeps him playing the way he should play. And so as long as he can do that, it's not necessarily like Simp resurrected or anything like that, but if there were 5-man teams and you could have this guy on a team with 4 other people, it would be as difficult as it was to play against Shotzi and Simp and Abizi. Pred is gross. He's not even like sneaky. He's just in your face disgusting. Like, he'll just run at you and get a 3-piece. He doesn't have to like slide and hide, and he's just like, no, I'm just coming to kill you because I have a better shot. And he has the brand to fit it. This guy probably has a future in a green team, in my opinion. But for now, I think he's going to play his butt off. And yeah, they're easily the third best team coming in on paper. However, of course, we've seen this team be consistently inconsistent, where it's like, yeah, sometimes we're going to place top 6, even though we're one of the best 2 or 3 teams that there is. And so, but they always try. And I see even when they lose, they take it well. Sib kind of goes crazy because he always wants to be the best player. But it's a good thing, right? It's made them, in their first year of playing, go up against the big dogs, catch a W, and place pretty well consistently. So yeah, I'd have them right where they are on there in A.
Love it. Gentlemen, we've done it. We've tier listed every CDL roster going into the third CDL season, the 2022-2023 CDL season. I hate when seasons have like 2 years. Should we just call it the 23 season? Is this the Jordan
This
year?
is gonna be weird,
Sure.
man. I don't know what to call this.
This is
This
CDL Call of Duty League, baby.
They
And
gotta
so
get Krim
those-
back in there. I don't know how they do it.
Dude, he would be ace on the desk, but I just can't see him.
Oh, there's no way they're giving him a
doing that.
microphone on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or not even necessarily on the desk, but like some sort of content series. Like, pay him to do content with you. Like, make cool content with him. He's hilarious. He himself, and obviously New York threw a great event, and it was more than just him. But I think, Krim's presence at that New York home series.
Oh my gosh.
Or major was
Game
that was
changing.
next. That's like, we just watched CDL evolve, right? Like we just
Yep.
we leveled up there. So shout out to Krim. Anyway, let's read this just one time. This is our top 12 rankings, tier list, whatever you want to call it. For those who maybe are listening and not watching, number 1, Atlanta FaZe. Number 2, LAT. 3, Surge. 4, Røkkr. Gosh, are we ever going to get past 4? We don't know. OpTic. 5, Ultra. 6. They're just chilling in the middle tier by themselves. There's no way they're the only mid team. Anyway, so we got them at number 6. And then we've got LAG at 7, Boston Breach at 8, NYSL at 9, Mutineers at 10, 11 is Legion, and 12 is Royal Ravens. F in the chat for them.
Only team we could move up is if we were going to put one with Ultra, I think would be NYSL. That's one of the teams that other people are seeing that probably is above where we have them. But I mean, I don't know. I think for the good reasons that we said, ours might be warranted.
I agree.
I need to see it. I need to see it. If I see it, then I'll put them in B. I mean, all of these are just guesses anyway.
Yeah, true.
We just spent an hour doing one of the most amazing yet unamazing exercises, because all I want to do now is just watch competitive Call of Duty. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to watch it. I want to get back into it. I can't wait for the game to come out. It comes out in 10 days. We're going to be grinding it, obviously. But until then, like I said at the beginning of the episode, guys, this is our last episode until the next time we do it next season. So we're going to be taking a little bit of time off here as the new game releases. You'll see us back again ahead of the next CDL season. I'm sure we'll be talking about impressions of the game, how teams are looking, getting hyped for the first event. It'll be a really, really good time. So other than that, make sure to follow Røkkr on all socials. Follow Ikon and Kingdom as well. That's at Kingdom_Soldier, at Icon Nation YT, and then I'm MiDNiTE. Follow me if you want. And yeah, that's it, man. GG's in the chat. We'll see you guys after our tiny little hiatus here. And enough said, man. Let's freaking go. Let's go Røkkr.